Okay, everyone. I must warn you, if you're easily scared by phantoms, or if you're offended by dark stories, now is the time for you to stop and exit this tour of Manor House. Otherwise, you enter at your own risk. Discretion is advised. Visit manorhouseshow.com and sign up for the RIP section, where you'll receive Manor House exclusives not found here or anywhere else. Your plot is waiting for you. And if you've made it out alive after tonight's tale, you will still have the option of renting a room for the night here at Manor House. It'll be an experience you'll never forget.
Tonight's tale is Lonely Stone by Lizz-Ayn Shaarawi. Lizz-Ayn Shaarawi is a Texan lost in the Oregon wilderness. She's a horror screenwriter and author whose short stories have been featured in numerous anthologies. Her screenplays have been recognized by the Austin Film Festival, the Nicol Fellowship in Screenwriting, and the Page Awards. Her work has been previously published in anthologies such as What Has Two Heads, 10 Eyes, and Terrifying Table Manners, Fairly Wicked Tales, and Ain't No Sanity Clause. She enjoys cheap thrills, expensive shoes, and things that go bump in the night. You can find her random babblings on Twitter under her username at LIZZAYN. To read Lizz-Ayn's exclusive interview on our website, as well as the rest of our exclusive author interviews, please visit manorhouseshow.com.
Follow me. The Phantom Collector awaits.
Welcome. Come in. Don't be scared. At least, not yet. I recently took up sculpting as a hobby, and I was chipping away at the old block. It was supposed to be a statue of Marie Antoinette, until I chopped her head off. Hey, wait a minute. It looks like life really does imitate art. Let's hope you don't lose your head when you hear tonight's petrifying piece. Della and her parents are on vacation in England when they decide to stop for a bite to eat. Unbeknownst to them, an ancient creature will be rising for the occasion. Gather round. Look into the light. Look. Look deep. Open your imagination and listen to the story called Lonely Stone.
Watch it, Dad.
Sorry, sweetie. Good book? Della ran her fingers over the book's page and smiled with pleasure. While most girls her age were freaking out over the latest boy band or ridiculous fashion, she immersed herself in other worlds and other times. It was the only bright spot in the darkness of her life. Currently, she was rereading Bullfinch's mythology for the umpteenth time. Gods and goddesses, monsters in their lairs. They filled Della with a sense of wonderment the real world couldn't compete with. It amused her that her parents assumed myths were perfectly benign for a teenage girl.
Please. Zeus and Leda? Cupid and Psyche? Sex and violence more perverse than most movies or television, even cable, filled the pages. Those stupid girls with their 1D posters and Bieber CDs had no idea what they were missing.
She nodded, adjusted her sunglasses, and tried to find where she had left off.
Let her read.
Her mother, head resting against the window, mumbled with a drowsy slur to her words. The car ride had been boring and long, but Della couldn't wait to arrive at their destination. Stonehenge, a place of magic and mystery. Ever since she had first read about the mystery of the large stones and the various theories behind their construction, she'd wanted to visit. For years, her parents sent her to summer camp to be with other kids, but she wasn't the social type. She preferred imaginary worlds to the real one, and after months of pestering, her parents agreed to use the money they'd spend for camp to take the family to Great Britain for a week instead. They'd flown into London and spent the first day going to Buckingham Palace and the London Tower. It was fun, but Della couldn't wait to get to Stonehenge. They made it to the site right as the ticket booth opened. The smell of the morning dew and the sweet grass filled Della's nostrils. Somewhere in the distance, a sheep bleated. Della held her mother's elbow as they made their way over to the roped-off area that kept tourists away from the monument. Though the afternoons were warm with summer sun, the morning still held a chill, and Della pulled her cardigan tighter around herself with her free hand. As they neared the stone structures, she tried to open herself up to the magic and majesty of the site. The cold damp of the rope bit into her skin as she leaned forward. A tremor of electricity coursed through her, thrilling her. Unsure if it was her imagination or the site's natural energy, she leaned farther forward. Perhaps she needed to be closer to feel the full impact of the ancient magic. Maybe she could slip through the rope and touch one of the monoliths. If she was fast enough, they wouldn't even realize she'd gotten through. And if she was caught, so what? Not only was she a tourist, but she would be channeling the site for its true purpose. It wouldn't hurt anything. At most, they'd probably only fine her. It would be worth it. She was sure of it. Inhaling a deep breath to steady her trembling hands, she gripped the rope and slipped her foot up. Her sunglasses fell to the ground as someone slammed into her from behind. She clung to the rope to keep from falling.
"Watch where you're going, you stupid cow!"
You idiot, she's blind.
Della felt her cheeks burn in embarrassment and anger as her hands snaked over the ground, searching for the fallen glasses. Her mother handed them to her and helped her stand.
"Sorry, love. I didn't realize."
She's fine.
The tense tone in her mother's voice embarrassed her more than the stranger's words. Della tried to recapture the magical feeling, but the moment had passed. A murmur worked its way through the crowd. She felt like all eyes were on her. Whether or not it was just a side effect of her embarrassment or real, she didn't care.
Let's go.
Are you sure, hun? We can stay as long as you want.
There are some walks we can take in the area. I just want to go.
She tried not to cry.
Stupid teenage hormones.
Tears always came with any disappointment these days. They never seemed to stop, and it embarrassed her, which made her angry, which made her cry more. They sat in silence as her dad drove through the countryside. Della's braille book lay open on the seat beside her, ignored. She turned toward the sunlight coming through the window and soaked up the heat, even though she was unable to view the beauty of the passing countryside. Like all good Americans, they retreated to the safety and sanctuary of a shopping mall food court to grab a quick bite and decide their next move. Della listened to the hum of the voices surrounding her. The accents amused her and helped ease the disappointment of the morning, though not by much. Smells from the different restaurants wafted by her each time someone rushed by with their tray. Deeper within the mall, the cacophony of a construction crew punctuated the vocal hum with percussive bangs and slams. There's always the cathedral in Salisbury. Della shook her head, even as she readjusted her sunglasses.
Honey, we came all the way over here. We might as well make the most of it.
You'll regret it if you don't. Though still upset, Della nodded and relaxed a bit more. She even managed to gulp down some of the overcooked hamburger her parents had gotten her. The voices went silent. A tense moment passed. A few of the shoppers giggled nervously. Conversations slowly resumed as the shoppers returned to their meals. Then, the screams started. Della's mother grabbed her shoulders and pulled her close. A rumble roared below the screams and footfalls, followed by a strange, crackling noise. It reminded Della of the sound thin ice made when you stepped on it. A threatening, dangerous sound. Her mother's hand gripped Della's forearm tightly.
We have to get out of here.
No, come back over here. Everyone's rushing towards the exits.
What if there's a gunman?
That doesn't happen here.
Well, there's a first time for everything.
The crackling grew louder, closer. Her mother's grip tightened to the point of pain.
Ow!
Della tried to pull away, but her mother yanked her closer. Dear God, what is it?
What? What do you see?
How is that happening? Is it chemical?
Tell me what you see.
The crackling came closer still. Della ripped her arm from her mother's grasp. Della, run! Her father nudged her away. Her mother's scream joined the others. The crackling din sounded right beside Della, hurting her ears. Cries and pleas slowly died out across the food court, one by one, replaced with a horrible silence. Della held her hands in front of her. Her fingertips brushed warm stone. She slid her hand up and felt a face. Her mother's face. A sob escaped her as her knees buckled. Crawling on the floor, she immediately hit another warm stone. Sliding up the torso, pulling herself to standing, her trembling hands ran across her father's frozen face. The tears came in earnest. Deep in the unnatural stillness, another sound emerged. A quiet hiss, followed by the slow drag of scales on tiled floors. Della fought to stop her tears, to stifle her cries as she hid behind her parents' bodies. She was unsure if they stood in a corner or were out in the open, unsure if the pursuer could see her or if she was sufficiently hidden. The hissing came closer and closer. Della tried to hold her breath. A fire alarm tore through the silence. The smell of burning food filled the air. An angry growl, and the hissing slithered in another direction. Della raced as cautiously as she could in the direction she recalled the automatic sliding door that opened to a busy street outside would be. Every few feet, she had to navigate around a petrified person. Old, young, fat, thin, tall, short, there was no discrimination in the statues. As she neared the exit, the statues were closer and closer together until the last few feet were packed in a tangle of impassable stone. Della tried to climb through, but the throng of people was too great. Something moved nearby. Della froze in her tracks.
Help me.
Heart pounding, Della strained to listen. The voice spoke again.
Help me.
Della tried to locate the source of the voice. It seemed to come from beneath her. Kneeling, she felt her way through the tangle of petrified bodies. A warm hand grabbed her wrist. She tried to pull back, but the grip was too strong.
I'm stuck. Get me out.
I can't. There's something here.
You're blind, aren't you?
What gave it away? The dark glasses or the way I'm falling over everything?
No need for that tone. Sorry, I'm a bit high-strung at the moment, given the current situation and all. My name's Marie. I can help you, if you help me.
Then I guess we're equally screwed.
You'll never find your way out. I can help you. I used to work down at the body shop, 2nd floor. I know a back door on the side of the building that we can slip out of. You have to work here to know about it. That thing won't be able to find it.
How can I get you out?
Could you shift some of these people on top of me?
A loud crash sounded, and the fire alarm stopped.
Hurry.
Della strained to hear the hiss or the slither. The quiet remained. She tried to push the stone people off of Marie, but they were too heavy. Some of them seemed to have frozen together as they fell.
Can't you crawl out around them?
If I could, I wouldn't be down here, would I?
Something heavy slid across the floor, slithered closer, echoing through the silent mall.
Oh, sweet Jesus, it's coming.
What is it?
Della tried to push with her back, but was rewarded with a scratch on her side where her shirt rode up.
I don't know. I couldn't really make it out. Caught a glimpse of scales, and that was enough for me, thank you.
The hissing came from directly behind Della. Marie grabbed Della's ankle.
For God's sake, help me.
Della reached down to pry Marie's fingers off, only to have the woman grab her sweater sleeve.
You've got to take me with you.
I'm sorry. I wish I could.
Della tried to pull away. The hissing grew louder. Della kicked out, ashamed by her actions, but the need to flee, to survive, overrode social convention. Marie held fast. Her voice bleated in panic.
Oh, dear God. Jesus, please. What is it?
The crackling sound filled Della's ears. Again, she tried to pry Marie's fingers from her sweater, but found only stone. The only option was to slide out of the garment. The hissing was practically right on top of her as she shrugged off the cardigan and crawled through the tangle of petrified bodies. She wove back through the statues until they thinned out. Smoke continued to pour from one of the restaurants, though the hissing didn't follow her. She headed away from the food court, away from the pile of human stone, and deeper into the shopping mall, the hiss retreating the further she headed into the shopping center. Her fingers trailed along the wall, occasionally dragging through empty air as she passed a store entrance, or smartly slamming into stone when she came across another petrified person. Faint sirens wailed, different from the smoke alarm. Police? Firemen? Della's heart soared with hope, only to be dashed when she realized that they could be turned into stone as well. What if she never escaped? What if she was stuck in a stupid shopping mall for eternity? How American was that? Fresh tears stung her eyes as the smell of concrete dust and drywall filled her nose. She stumbled over a reclined body and slammed into a sign. It must have fallen from the ceiling earlier. Her hands ran over the large letters. A-R-G-O-S. The name tickled her memory, but she shrugged it off, deciding that she must have heard a commercial on the hotel's television mention the store. She felt a cold draft of air and got excited. Maybe there was an exit close by, like Marie had mentioned. She worked her way around the sign. Once inside the store, paint fumes made her head ache. An earthy undertone permeated the atmosphere. She crept through the aisles, her hands out in front of her. Small pencils scattered across the floor rolled beneath her shoes, knocking her off balance. Laminated catalog sheets threatened to slip her up with every step. Her knee hit a plastic barrier. She edged around it only to run into another barrier, and another. Someone had pushed the barriers around in an odd configuration. Della worked her way around the next barrier and was pleased to find her way clear. Shuffling her feet, each step a leap of faith, each movement a possible disaster, she made her way through the opening in the barriers. The earthy smell overwhelmed her senses. She gagged against the rich, mulchy scent. The loud clang of metal falling to the floor startled Della. She fought to stay calm, to keep the tears at bay. A low hiss sounded to the right, accompanied by the slither of leathery skin on tile and tarps. The small pencils rolled, creating a gentle tinkling sound, reminiscent of wind chimes, which would be calming if it wasn't for the knowledge that they heralded the arrival of a terrible monster, a monster that was coming for Della. Della clawed at the air in front of her, desperate for a cupboard to hide in. She was smallish. She could probably fit in a display case, if she could only find where one was. A plastic barrier barked against her leg, and she winced, but bit back a yelp. The hisses grew louder. The creature drew closer. The slight breeze blew again and ruffled her hair. Della slid around the barrier, feeling the air in front of her hands, only to feel air under her feet as well. Tumbling with a complete lack of grace, she landed at the bottom of a hole dug beneath the store. Carved rocks scraped her leg when it plunged through a large crack, effectively stopping her fall. The breeze came from the broken ground. Gingerly, she pulled her leg from the breach. She could feel the hot blood running down her calf. A few tender touches reassured her that the scrapes weren't deep, even if they throbbed and ached mercilessly. The hissing was now right above her. This close, the sound became white noise, a rolling hum. She curled herself into as small a ball as she could manage, hoping against hope that she might make herself invisible. If she held her breath, didn't move, disappeared into the rubble, perhaps the thing wouldn't see her. Something tapped Della's shoulder, and she jumped. It prodded her shoulder again. Trembling, she reached back and felt a long, notched metal pole, possibly a clothing rack. It hung there for a moment, then slowly pulled back. Della released it, her body racked with tremors of fear. The pole nudged her again and again. She grabbed it. It pulled back slowly. This time, Della kept her grip on it. Slowly, with the help of the pole's pull, she found her way to the top of the hole. A cool, smooth hand gripped her wrist and helped her out the rest of the way. She shuddered at the touch. Fingers slid over her face and eyelids. It was only then that Della realized her glasses must have fallen off during the tumble. The hands cupped her face. A rich, female voice spoke to her in an unfamiliar language. It took a few minutes for Della to recognize it as Latin. With horrified amusement, Della realized where she recognized the store's name from. The ancient texts wrote of the demise of the Gorgon, Medusa. They say she was buried at the market of Argos. A high-pitched giggle, bordering on hysteria, escaped Della. She only wished they'd been more specific. The cool skin enveloped Della, and she cringed, waiting for her fate to be sealed, anticipated the blow or bite, or whatever mode of death and destruction awaited her. The fatal strike never came. Instead, when she tired of standing stiff as a board, She relaxed into the embrace and realized that the creature was hugging her. Della raised her hands cautiously. When there was no response, she reached out, hands shaking violently, and touched the face of the monster in front of her. Her fingers caressed a broad forehead, high cheekbones that slid down to full lips, and a pointed chin. Medusa was far from hideous. In fact, she was beautiful. The undulating mass of snakes that made up the Gorgon's hair writhed and twisted around Della's fingers, but they didn't nip or bite. Medusa led Della a few feet away. She heard the Gorgon right a chair and then helped Della to sit in it. Assured that her death wasn't imminent, Della practically collapsed into the chair, exhausted. She could hear the slither becoming fainter. Perhaps that was it. A brush with death. Something to tell the grandkids on cold winter nights.
Hey, did I ever tell you about the time I met Medusa? Funny story.
But then the slither returned. Della sat up, straight-backed, only to feel warm cloth drape around her shoulders. Della fumbled around the cloth and found armholes. It was a hoodie to replace her cardigan. As Della zipped it up, Medusa helped her to her feet. Soothing words she couldn't understand filled her ears. She stopped Medusa and showed the Ancient One how to lead her by allowing Della to grasp her elbow. They wove their way through the rubble, the statues that once lived and breathed, until they reached the entrance to the mall. Della felt the sunlight warm her face as they stepped out, and tilted her face towards it, even as the policeman shouted against the crackle that exploded across the car park as flesh turned to stone.
Della was the sole survivor in the end. Good thing she was able to turn a blind eye to the whole ordeal. You may be thinking, was this all part of Della's vivid imagination? Or did Medusa really come back and get everyone stoned? That's one party that will go down in history. I hope you enjoyed tonight's tale. Until the next one, won't you stay the night